Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Fox Forum. Today, I'm joined by Ned Miller, Senior Vice President of Strategic Growth Initiatives at EverFox, to discuss how AI is being deployed across defense and national security environments and what it takes to deliver trusted, secure capabilities in contested environments. Ned, welcome. Before we dive into the topic, could you tell everyone a little bit more about your background and your role at EverFox, please?
Sure, Jack, I appreciate that. I've been with the firm now for just a little over a year, a little over 30 plus years in the industry, predominantly in the cybersecurity space, leading strategic initiatives across organizations like CrowdStrike, McAfee, Symantec, HP. So a long time practitioner and student, as they say, of the cybersecurity game, and now here at EverFox, helping the organization grow the business.
Can't believe it's only been a year since you joined. That's gone fast.
It has gone fast. It has gone fast.
Right, thanks for that. So I'm just going to dive into the topic now. So AI has moved, as we're all aware, incredibly quickly over the last few years, sort of from early pilots and experimentations to real discussions around mission use. So in your opinion, are we now at the stage where AI is moving from labs into operational environments? And what does that shift actually mean for defense and intelligence organizations?
Yeah, so Jack, the reality is AI has been actively being used by certain organizations within DoW and the intelligence community and across our Five Eyes and allied partners as well for quite some time. Specifically in the intelligence community, it's not a new concept. How we have seen them move from that experimentation phase that you described to more of that operational phase is, as you think about within the soldiers that are forward deployed, how they're now able to leverage AI at the edge for decision support. So it has definitely moved from that experimental phase into some live action environments. What we have seen over the course of the past year has been a number of exercises that, in this case, DoW has been, and this has been in the media. So you can read about programs like Ivy Mass and a few others that have shown up in some of the mainstream media, where they talk about the different types of exercises and how DoW is now leveraging AI for decision support all the way out to the very edge. So working with organizations like Palantir and Anduril, we actually get to see this because we're in the middle of the secure communications as that AI data set and the sensor data is passed back and forth.
So does it remain true that, as you said, it's now in operation, we've seen it being used, but is the question more around can it be trusted rather than how it's used?
Absolutely, it's a great point, Jack. So the reality of a number of the conversations that I've been with customers, as well as when I've gone through interviews with individuals such as yourself, they always ask, the question's always asked, so where are we with being able to trust the data? Because everyone is aware of how AI has been used. In effect, it's AI versus AI. We've talked about that. We've tweeted about it for some time. And then the Mythos example with Fab 5, et cetera, now challenged a number of the assumptions that we had with how do we trust the data. So it has amplified the concern over poisoning of large language models. How do we trust that data set? So by the time we get to a decision support system that is enabling the human to make a real decision that could be battle space oriented, where they have to push a button or make a decision, how do you trust that data? So it becomes an interesting circumstance. We talk about use cases as an example of the concept of call it classified browse down, where we have organizations that are operating in classified environments, trying to get access to data set that is not classified, bring that into a decision support system, and then make a real-time decision. So the problem is very complex, but trusting the data along with the infrastructure, has become the catalyst for the conversations that I'm party to pretty much every day now. We're having those real time.
Yeah, and speaking about those conversations you're having in real day, I feel like specifically you, and to a greater extent the company itself,
Mhm.
are in a unique position to know what the biggest successes have been for defense and intelligence organizations. I know you probably can't speak to it in detail, but what do they really look like? What does using AI and being able to trust AI look like at a bigger scale, larger scale, for example, the Department of War?
Yeah. So Jack, we have the benefit of not only working with and serving our customers across DoW, the folks that are forward deployed actually in the battle space. We have some folks on staff. As a matter of fact, one of the previous interviews you conducted was with a member of our team that his previous life, he was one of those forward deployed assets leveraging this kind of technology. And the thing that actually keeps me really interested in helping in designing and pushing the envelope on this kind of innovation is when you talk to them and they say words like, this capability saves lives. That's the meaningful part of what we're doing here. So it can be that serious. Most
Yeah,
folks think about AI as a convenience and how we can leverage it in our day-to-day lives, makes our administrative tasks easier. These folks are talking about it as though it actually saves human life. So from that perspective, it's a very different tone. So the folks that I'm working with on a day-to-day basis, that's the stakes that they're dealing with and trying to leverage this
yeah,
current state of AI.
absolutely. And you mentioned that we obviously use AI and everyone's using AI at this point.
Yeah.
But I want to understand the differences, and I mean you kind of spoke about the impact of it, but what
Mhm.
does the operationality look like of deploying AI in defense versus deploying AI in a commercial world?
Right. It's very, very different. So the rules of engagement for deployment of AI to include infrastructure, not just the software, but the infrastructure to leverage the capability of AI. When you think about the Department of War from an enterprise concept, it is the
Mm.
largest enterprise on the planet. I was fortunate enough, I just had dinner with 40 of my closest friends with the DOW CIO a couple evenings ago. And she was describing, she came from commercial industry into this role with a lot. She's a former practitioner, executive from a cybersecurity perspective from some fairly large organizations and moved into the DOW role. And she said her first observation was just being at awe of how large and complex the DoW infrastructure is.
Mm.
So when you think about enterprise and then you think about the communications infrastructure necessary to leverage AI in a meaningful way, we talk about networks at the enterprise level, like in our office, we're
Yeah,
1,000 people here in the Herndon area. It is easy for us to leverage AI. When you have a distributed workforce that's global and some in these highly contested environments that we're going to talk about, they're leveraging all kinds of communications tools, satellite. In some cases, they have no communications whatsoever. They're in what's considered a DDoS environment. And as a result, they still need to operationalize AI for decision support. So the complexity, and again, back to trusting the data, the security, all of the things that DoW folks that are forward deployed in these contested environments have to deal with in terms of just the adversaries trying to compromise every approach to that infrastructure. That's the big difference. The folks on the commercial side, we don't have to
yeah.
worry necessarily about the bad guys attacking our infrastructure that could limit and or stop our ability for our networks to work. DoW has to account for that.
Do you see that as the sort of defining challenge for operational AI within sort of contested environments and those sorts of areas?
I do. And again, I'm very fortunate in the role that I'm in here at EverFox that I get to spend a lot of time with customers all the way from DOW CIO to the
Mm.
folks that are responsible for deploying these forward assets that we talk about, the likes of SOCOM, et cetera.
Yeah.
And as a result, I have the ability to ask a lot of questions and understand how exactly they need to deploy these capabilities. And I do believe their biggest challenge is securing the infrastructure and securing the data. So the integrity of the data becomes the key concern going forward.
And what part does sovereignty play into AI deployment? Obviously, the recent news with Mythos was that it's mainly staying within the US for now. Is that something that you see growing within I guess, the world and other countries? Or
Yes, sure, absolutely. And we talk about this very topic across our partner ecosystem. And the conventions that we use when we describe it, it's what are we doing within US Gov? What are we doing to support our releasable content? So releasable would be working with NATO and our allies across to include the extended allies like across Indo-PACOM, certain countries of interest that we're working with. And then there is the sovereign piece of it. So the sovereign piece is within the different countries, they want to maintain the data in their particular region, if you will. And as a result, doing so then also creates yet again another infrastructure challenge for how do they then share that data securely. So we're in the middle of a number of those conversations. So secure transfer and secure access continue to be the biggest challenges, and then trusting the data is now front and center of everybody's mind. How do we trust the data? And again, it's back to that AI versus AI conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. I kind of want to move on slightly to talk about the data more, and sort of the issues that surround data, but particularly models. When we're talking about AI models, is that the real challenge facing these organizations, or is it actually just the data itself and the quality of the data itself?
Yeah, that's a good question, Jack. And I think your mileage varies depending upon who you ask that question to, right?
Yeah.
So, and it has to do with the maturity of the organization as they've gone through kind of the adoption curve of AI. Everybody starts with high expectations that the data is sanitized and it's good to go, and you can feed the LLMs and the learning models, and you're good to go. There is a pretty steep, from my understanding, and talking to a lot of CIOs, there's a pretty steep curve in getting the data to the point where just the data is sanitized and reliable, that it belongs in the model. So that's part of it. So there's that part of that journey of getting the data set ready. The language models themselves then become the potential threat vector for any of the adversaries. Depending upon what the use case is, the adversaries will look for high value targets, as we call them, to potentially poison or influence that data set. And therein lies the challenge going forward. So you ask the question, how do we trust the data? Well, where and how do we trust the data? So enter into the equation now a number of customers are moving towards adopting standards-based encryption capability, as well as data tagging. And then obviously quantum is on the tip of everybody's mind. There was just an announcement the other day from the White House. So what I think you will see as it relates to data is a lot of energy being put on how do we protect the data better. And then from our perspective, we're kind of the secure transport layer. So we're going to make sure that once the data is protected, it's going to depart its origination state, and it will arrive safely at the appropriate destination. So we'll be involved in all of those decision support components as it traffics through all the different kinds of networks.
Yeah, absolutely. So earlier in the conversation, you mentioned classified data and sensitive data as well. So assuming the data is trusted and correct, how do we actually look to unlock the value of classified and sensitive data?
Well, it depends on the mission requirements at that point. So there's some things that we're doing to help standardize the data types that traverse through these networks. So all things are not equal when you talk about AI in terms of passing data and data types. So there's some complexity there that we're eliminating or attempting to eliminate as we think about moving data through our secure, as you and I talk about our guards, right? So
Yeah.
our high-speed guards. As the data sets move through those guards, that's a key area that we have to focus on, is making sure that the classified data remains going to classified environments, right? So secret to secret, top secret to top secret, and then ensuring that if there is a desire or use case to, as we talked about before, I often talk about this notion of prompt engineering from a classified environment, and there's a desire to do this classified browse down capability.
Yeah.
So from a secure browser, move into an unclassified environment. And so that's obviously heading south, but then also northbound, being able to go from unclass to class. So as you're aware, and for our audience, many of you are learning more and more about how we can help folks with AI. That's a real live use case that we're working with customers on today.
So it's AI being able to access different silos of information. If you keep them all separated, it's not going to be as effective. Is that
Correct.
essentially what you're saying?
Essentially, because what'll end up happening is if there's data, language models that we want access to, and this is actually happening today, and they're on the low side and we want them on the high side, somebody has to go copy that onto some device that's off
Floppy disk.
like in the old days. And then literally sneaker net that into the classified environment, scrub that device that they copied it onto before they preload it into another source where they then replicate that language model. Well, that's not efficient at all, as everybody knows. So
Yeah.
we have to address that problem. And that's back to the original premise of your question. The high value data that we're talking about, how do we trust it, right? So that sneaker net process, that introduces threats, right? So there's all kinds of challenges that over time we thought we addressed. And having been in the business over 30 plus years, and most of it in cyber, I would have never thought I would say to you today in 2026 that we are still sneaker netting information from one device to another device. I never thought that would happen.
Neither. So just delving a bit more into trust. I know we've mentioned it already, but I kind of want to look at the sort of impacts of trust a little bit. So sort of what level of human oversight needs to remain, especially when we're looking at things more at the edge. Yeah, what's your stance on that? When do we start trusting AI data to the extent that it doesn't need human oversight?
I believe it will depend on the mission circumstance. So today, I can say with some degree of confidence and without a whole lot of detail that when we have AI decision support systems that are defending against, let's say, a UAV, and there's lots of talk about drone swarming and lots of different capabilities in that arena. We can see today AI without much human intervention taking some proactive measure to mitigate that threat. So that's kind of the AI versus AI model where we are protecting high value targets, but the decision to take some action against those swarms, I believe we trust that today. Right? I believe that is an example of an action that we can trust the data, we can trust the system without a lot of human intervention. Now, I also know that there's still human intervention in making that decision, but nonetheless, I believe that would be a use case where we could see automation at full play, AI versus AI. On the other hand, if there is high stakes human element to making these decisions, meaning that before somebody takes a kinetic action based on the AI data that's presented to them, it's considered a human assisted decision support process.
Yeah.
We want the AI to enable the human to have the best data possible to make the decision to take some kinetic action. That's going to continue for some time. I think that's just the rules of engagement will continue to have a human in the loop there.
Yeah. Okay. Good to know.
Yeah, Skynet's not taken over just yet, Jack. But you know, there is that thought process.
And do you see sort of operations at the edge, and especially with AI? Is that where it's really going to prove its value? Do you think AI, or at least is that the sort of melting pot for it? Is that where it's making the furthest stride?
In terms of high value, if you were to rank where AI will make its most significant value back to the operators, I don't think it's going to necessarily just be at the edge. When you think about some of the value of AI, just before a kinetic action even happens, the ability to run simulations and get a true understanding of the wargaming concept.
Yeah.
The ability to understand the enemy and its abilities before any kinetic action or human intervention is actually launched. Those are high value capabilities as well. So when I use the term, and I use it pretty loosely, decision support, the concept of decision support entails many, many facets, right? So before actions are even taken into consideration, that planning process, the planning, the logistics, all of that will speed up significantly in order to support the warfighter at the edge. So it's difficult for me and to place those kinds of value components on which is more important and how to prioritize the top 10. I suspect if we had a group of operators, those that operate at the edge, and a series of the leadership team that use the data for decision support, all the way back to the building, as we call it, the Pentagon, and the folks that do value judgments there. Every part of that chain, that some refer to it as the kill chain, or let's just call it the logistics chain for easier understanding here. But that logistics chain, in terms of decision support, each one of those stages has the ability to rank AI, and I'm sure they would all rank it very high.
Yeah, absolutely. So if we're serious about operationalizing AI at mission scale, what has to happen next? What are our next moves?
I think what we'll see over the course of the next 5 years is a continuation of the improvement of the communications infrastructure. So today we're leveraging LEO quite a bit, low Earth orbit, satellite capabilities. There will be additional complexity added into how satellite comms actually work in the future. We'll start to see mesh networking in outer space, as they say, in space, that improves the communications, which will then give us the ability to drive more data to wherever we need it to the edge. So as the infrastructure becomes less brittle, faster, and resilient, we will start to see more and more data get pushed to the edge. So what a number of folks are predicting is AI at the edge, so the processing will take place much faster and then the ability to share that information with all of the resources that need to have it at whatever level they need to have it, different domains, classifications, etc., will exponentially go faster. And as a result, we'll have more real-time data that will be afforded to the folks on the ground, as well as decision support. So the infrastructure will get better. It's going to get faster. The options for infrastructure and communications will get better. We'll see more energy and ability to process at the edge. And I think we'll even see more processing in some of the device types, whether we call them UAVs, pick a class, right? Whether it's something that flies or floats, or in all the different classes that we've seen now. I think there will be more and more intelligence pushed out to those devices, and then everything becomes a sensor. Once everything's a sensor, how do you then make sure that the infrastructure can collect that data at scale, to your point, and for the users then to be able to consume it and process it?
So I'd just like to hone in on that a tiny bit. The infrastructure point. What sort of investments do you think we actually need to make in the infrastructure so that we can build up to this scale? Is it just simply data centers, and or is there more?
No, I think we'll see, as I start down the path, we'll see improvements in satellite communications. We'll see improvements in today we're at 5G. They're talking about 6G. They're talking about different types of spectrum communications. I think that level of communication will also change pretty significantly over the coming years. I was on a panel a few weeks ago, Jack, and there was a gentleman from DOW in one of their innovation groups, and he in particular was talking about advances that they're making with 6G that will pretty much not be an evolution, but a revolution in terms of how we communicate, even with our phones, right? So the amount of data that we'll be able to push will be significantly changed in the coming years. And again, it'll afford this concept of us creating, through the use of AI, more data than we ever fathomed. The infrastructure, the communications infrastructure, will continue to evolve as well.
Well, thank you very much, Ned. I think that's about on time. I really appreciate you coming on and providing us with your superb insight.
My insight's only as good as being able to talk to our customers and being able to share stories. So, Jack, I consider myself a professional storyteller.
Well, I appreciate it anyway. So that will wrap us up for the latest episode of Fox Forum. We will be back again next month. If you have any questions for Ned, there will be an email link somewhere around this video. Feel free to reach out and we can talk further. Ned, thank you very much.
Jack, thank you. Great conversation. Take care.